After a long winter, the British Touring Car Championship is about to return. Let us be your guide.
Hello and welcome back to the British Touring Car Podcast. We are back once again and the 2026 season is now upon us. We've done Media Day, everything's done, dusted out the way. We have 21 drivers this season and we're going to take you through all of them, the teams that are on the grid and what you can expect from the season ahead.
Yep, this will be your comprehensive 101 of what to expect for the 2026 season. We'll look at calendars, we'll look at ones to watch, we'll look at anything touring car related in the next however long this podcast is.
Yeah, if you haven't done already, make sure you're subscribed and make sure you click that bell down below because we'll have previews, reviews, all sorts of podcasts coming out throughout the season to keep you up to date with even race weekends and news all the way in between.
You mentioned Media Day there as well. This is a good chance for you to go check out our Media Day roundup, which includes a couple of driver interviews as well. So make sure once you finish listening to this, if you haven't already, you go back and get our lowdown of what happened at Brands Hatch.
Yes, and a thank you to start as well. Thank you for all the interaction we've had in the off-season so far. Please keep up and continue that throughout the season. We love to see every single comment of yours, and it makes for a good discussion a lot of the time.
Absolutely. Right. Where do you want to start for the 2026 season? Do you want to do teams, rules? Where do you want to kick things off?
I think we should start with the teams that we've got.
That's fine. No problem at all. So we'll start with Team Virtue then. They are running the Hyundai i30 and they are going to be a constructor for the 2026 season.
Yeah, 4 drivers at that team this year, but only just with Rob Collard.
That would be surprising.
Ricky Collard being announced on the morning of Media Day. Nick Hamilton the day before, and then the 2 Toms, Tom Chilton and reigning champion Tom Ingram.
Yep. They've kept part of the lineup from last year in the 2 Toms. Obviously, Nick Hamilton coming in. I think this is actually quite a brave move from Nick because
there's nowhere to hide.
Exactly that. Without putting too fine a point on it, we know, obviously, for those who may be new to the sport, Nick Hamilton is related to Lewis Hamilton, but completely funded by his own steam, not by Lewis.
Nope.
And he has got a disability which affects how he drives. So the fact he's on the grid in any way, shape or form is fantastic, and he works incredibly hard to make sure he's able to get on the grid. However, he's not been the fastest for various reasons over the years. He has now got himself into arguably the best car on the grid. Yeah. Certainly for last year, there is an argument.
Last year, yeah.
As you say, there is nowhere to hide. He will be scrutinised harder than ever. Fairly or unfairly, he will be scrutinised harder than ever because he is now, for the first time in his his touring car career, at a top team.
Yeah, the only small caveat that he may have is he will have to get to learn a brand new car to himself. The team will have to get to learn how he works because I'm sure the way that he sets a car up is probably a lot different to plenty of the other drivers that are on the grid. So it's going to be a little bit of a baptism of fire, but he managed to get a decent amount of running on Media Day despite 2 offs. So I think he'll be looking to consolidate in the first part of the season and then look to push on in the second half.
Absolutely. As for Ricky Collard returns to the series, which will be great news for rear view mirrors everywhere as those lights start flashing. I'm actually quite excited by this one because I quite like Ricky Collard. He's a bit of a throwback in terms of driving style. Certainly takes after his father in the school of hard knocks. But hey, look, you want that. You do want a little bit of action. It's nice as it is to watch some really minute millimeter overtakes. Sometimes it is quite nice to have as a fan, probably not if you're in the cockpit, but as a fan, it's nice to have that little bit of aggression, which Ricky certainly brings to the grid. And I'm interested to see what he can do. He's certainly got unfinished business in the touring cars. If you watched our video in the off season of top 5 drivers never to win a race, he did feature. So I think we both said there's no chance he comes back. So we're on the pulse again here on the British Touring Car Pod. But yeah, I think he'll definitely have a race win within his sights.
I was going to say, stepping into the Hyundai this year, I think that is definitely going to be the target that's at the top of his list, and possibly even finishing inside the top 10 in the championship. Obviously, he's been away for a little while, but in that time, he has become a British GT champion as well with his father.
Absolutely.
So he's got a decent amount of racing pedigree behind him. And now he's back in the sport for the Btcc.
Then we have the 2 Toms. Tom Chilton, who first debuted all the way back in 2002. He's got 533 starts to his name and 18 wins. He had a really good couple of seasons at Virtue. I think this would be another consolidation season to a degree. Challenge championship if he can, but certainly if not, get up there, getting podiums, getting wins, and helping the other Tom to try and keep that crown.
Yeah, it does make a little bit of a change now with Tom having been at the team for so long. We don't normally see him stick around a team this long. So hopefully he's well settled in there and he can be that, quote, number 2 driver that Ingram is going to need to try and retain his title for 2026.
Yep, as of Ingram then, so he has won 40 races so far in the series with 356 starts. He's actually been in the series now for 12 years, would you believe? David back in 2014. He was the man to beat last year and nobody could beat him. Can he go back to back is going to be the big question for this year. It doesn't happen very often we see drivers go back to back.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
It has happened,
it has.
But it's not often.
And this year he will actually be running his trademark 80 on the car rather than the number 1. So if you're struggling to pick him out, he's the one with the gold number plate on the front. So
a question for Anorax, feel free to leave the comment below. When was the last time we had the series where the number 1 wasn't ran? For me, I can't remember. So if anybody does know, drop us a message below. Okay, so we'll move on to who's likely to be their main competitor, and it is Nappa Racing. They are in the Ford Focus ST. However, it is the longer version, titanium edition, which is a quasi saloon coupe, and they are also a constructor as well. So just to quickly, as a side for that, if you're new to the sport, there is 2 types of entrants. You've got constructors, which have a level of manufacturer backing, and you've got independents that may run a particular type of car but haven't got the backing or the input from said manufacturer. We'll get to some of those a bit later on.
Yeah, so they've partially rebuilt the car this year to have that more saloon style. They've used the same chassis as last year. There is a video on their own YouTube channel showing you the process that they've had to go through in the off season, and they've kept fairly stable with their driver lineup as well.
Yeah, 3 of the 4 remain from last year.
Yeah, exactly. Ash Sutton will still be there alongside Dan Camish with Sam Osborne once again, and then new to the grid will be Lewis Selby making his debut in the Btcc.
Yep, this is going to be a particularly interesting one. We've not had a debutant at a big team for I say for a long time. I suppose Dillion wasn't a debutant. I suppose Rainford is the most recent one I could think of. He did pretty well.
He did.
But yeah, this is a huge step up for Selby, who does, of course, know the Nappa brand and the Nappa family, having raced in the minis in the Nappa. That's about 4 times. If Nappa want to go for us a sponsorship.
If they want to sponsor us, that would be lovely.
Yeah. It might impede our impartiality. But so he's now stepping into the touring cars. We've seen in the past that these support series are there to try and help drivers get into the main series, but the step up is Championship to Premier League level. It is a huge step.
It is a huge step up. Sam Osborne, as we said, is returning with the team, took his first Btcc win last year out. Total of 176 races, debuted in 2019. He should be looking to kick on this season.
Gotta be.
More podiums, possibly even another win or 2. As long as he feels comfortable with the new car setup.
I don't believe he's eligible for the Jack Sears this year either, so he hasn't got that to aim for. And then at the top, or the sharp end as you expect it, Championship ever-present Dan Camish, who will certainly be aiming this season to get that one over on Ash and finish higher and potentially take his first British touring car crown. He debuted back in 2018, 207 starts, 16 wins. That this is a fast driver who's not necessarily had the brakes in any car, to be honest with you. That's a poor.
That's a touchy subject, mate.
That wasn't intentional. Wow, that's a faux pas.
If you haven't seen or you don't understand and you're new to sport, Dan Camish came very close to winning the championship a couple of years ago at Halford's Team Dynamics in the Honda, coming down into the penultimate lap, I think it was, of the season, had brake failure at Brands, which lost him the championship. So, yeah, well played there, mate.
It genuinely wasn't. I'm not that funny to write those sort of jokes. But yeah, so Dan Camish is back. He'll certainly be aiming to finish above teammate Ash Sutton.
Yes, yeah, Ash Sutton, a 4-time champion, looking to take that record again this season and make it 5 in a row. 47 wins already in his career out of just 297 races. He's got a huge conversion ratio. And yeah, he's going to be, I think, the main challenger to Ingram this season.
Absolutely. Right, we'll move on to West Surrey Racing, which are running a BMW 330i M Sport. And they are, for the first time since 2014, an independent entry. We'll get on to the drivers, but I think it's fair to say that things at WSR aren't as peachy as perhaps they were a couple of years ago, just from a fan point of view. Obviously, we did interview a driver in our media day preview, this is just our opinion. It's not anything that was said otherwise. This is just as a fan looking in. The sponsorship levels have gone
it's
down,
noticeable how
down.
BMW have gradually been stepping away. Obviously, De Leon had a fairly well-backed season from what we saw with lack of sponsorship by BMW last time out. And there is basically no BMW branding on, hence the independent tag on the team for this season. They have managed to retain both drivers, though.
They have retained both drivers. It's a real shame that they're in this situation because it's not the first time they've not had manufacturer backing. As I say, they were independent back in 2014, but they've sort of had 12 or so years of real backing from BMW, even all the way through. You think of the various liveries, the black livery with the BMW X Protect, I think it was, then transitioning back to the white style livery. And now we're at a situation where you say last year we had De Leon running just the M colours but nothing else, and now we're at this point where we've basically got a Sensodyne style car. With credit to Btcc House of Memes for that one. It's just a little bit worrying, I think, to see such a stalwart of a team, such an icon of the series. I mean, let's be honest, they are probably, must be the most successful team off the top of the head.
They've had some big losses over the last couple of seasons. Obviously, with Turkington stepping back from the team, now Hill moving on at the end of last season. These two drivers are more than capable.
Oh, absolutely,
De Leon and Rainford are both race winners from last season, as well as pole sitters, and they're young and hungry for success.
Absolutely, and sometimes that is absolutely what a team like this needs, is that little bit of galvanisation from two younger drivers who are looking to make their mark. It does make me worry about the long-term future of that team and where things might go further down the line, because, look, the sport is expensive. Unless you've got deep pockets like somebody else will cover a bit later on. But, it is a tricky sport to remain in. And it's very unusual to have an independent that only runs one main sponsor, in my view. I know that there's a couple of ones we'll talk about later, but they've got other sponsors on the car as well.
Yes.
It was stark just to see how blank that car is. I suppose you could argue it's less blank than last year's De Leon car.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's fingers crossed for a good season for both the BMW drivers, because you say they are both young, they're both very exciting. But yeah,
early signs are good though. Performance in pre-season has been good. They've topped testing times at Croft and at Media Day, so it looks like there is a decent amount of pace in the car.
Yeah, it looks like there's good work on the engine in the off season.
Whether they can transfer that into race pace across a weekend and then across the season will remain to be seen. But I think both drivers will certainly be looking at the independent drivers title at the very least.
Agreed.
And possibly even moving towards the drivers title by the end of the season.
Absolutely. And the season's long. You never know what might come in ways of sponsorship as the season progresses as well. Okay, so we'll move on to Speedworks Corolla Racing, which were previously Toyota Gazoo Racing. So they are still manufactured back, those. They are still entering under a constructor banner, or at least half the team is. And it's coming under the Toyota Corolla car. The constructor side of things are fronted by Josh Cook and Max Buxton.
Yes, it is the last hatchback on the grid though, so it's going to be interesting to see how they perform. They've stuck with the Toka engine from the end of last season, which saw a big change in fortune for the team. They have.
Have they?
Yeah.
Oh, it was wrong at this, was it? Okay.
Yeah. No, when I spoke to Dorlin before we did the interview, he said, then those drivers have told me that they've stuck with the Toka engine for this season. Okay. So, it looks like their fortunes may well change, and if they can keep up that form from the end of last season, then they may well be in the mix for taking podiums and possibly even taking wins throughout the season. But I think it could be a difficult season for them as a whole.
Why?
Just the hatchback is not the suited car at the moment. There is a reason why teams have moved away from it, and I just think the way that they've split the team might make them suffer a little.
You are right, they have kept the Toka Sport engine. That wasn't like that when I last looked at it, so that's changed. Okay, fair enough. No, I think that what they have got going for them is that they've got Josh Cook, who is a very solid driver, and will be looking to... he certainly did well there last year after the one Motorsport shenanigans and moving across to Toyota with a couple of weeks to go. He actually did really well. They took a win as well. It was pretty strong there. And Max Buxton, I thought, had a pretty good season last year. All things, it was a bit of a a difficult year for everyone at Toyota. They obviously got the engine wrong and they had to do a few swaps throughout the season.
It was a bit of a merry-go-round for drivers as well.
Yeah, it was.
If they can stabilise that this season, which I think they will by the look of it, I think that will lead to a bit more consistency. And having Josh there, he's normally able to get the best out of the car, and I think Max will continue to learn on top of that.
Fair enough. On the shinier side of the garage, we have
very shiny
Laser Tools Racing with MB Motorsport. They are also running the Toyota Corolla, but they are under the independent banner. And dare I say, the independent team is stronger than the constructors team, in my opinion, because they have got a three-time touring car champion.
Yeah, Gordon Shedden stays with them along with Aaron Taylor-Smith. Obviously, deals were done towards the end of last season.
Very quick.
MB Motorsport, obviously, they knew they were going to lose their main driver in Jake Hill. I think they were well aware of the possible sponsorship troubles that were going on at WSR, and the move to Toyota now makes a little bit more sense as well.
They're very early in getting their business done as well. I think this is one of the first teams, if not the first team, to announce their 2026 plans.
And a very experienced team at that.
Massively.
Gordon Shedden, having been in the sport since 2001, yes, he's been in and out of it, but he's still highly experienced.
53 race wins as well.
And also Aaron Taylor-Smith has been there since 2011 with 326 starts and 4 wins.
Yeah, so they've got just under 1,000 starts between them, rounding up roughly.
That's not bad, is it?
It's not bad going. It's not bad going, and they've got a combined total of 57 wins. Although, I mean, most of them do belong to Flash.
Weighted.
But look, that's a really strong team. Aaron Taylor-Smith had a difficult season last year, but again, we know the troubles with the car. Shedden, there's no argument about it, got the best out of that car over the season. And I think it's really good that they've managed to keep him for this season, because it means we have got 3 champions on the grid. We've got 3 multiple champions on the grid as well, which I think speaks for the quality of driver on show.
I also think that the livery on that Toyota suits it really well, and seeing it shine and pop in the bright sunshine that we have for Media Day really showed it off in its best light.
Completely agree. We'll move across then to Restart Racing, who are also running a Hyundai i30, but they are an independent team. They are, of course, the reigning independent driver and teams champions from last year as well. So they'll be looking to build on that success for 2026.
Yeah, they've managed to keep hold of one of their drivers in Chris Smiley. We knew that Dan Lloyd was going to take a sabbatical year, take a year out, make sure he's got the budget to come back bigger and better next season and for seasons beyond as well, which means they had to dip into the driver market, and they have picked up a little bit of a surprise to both of us. James Dorlin, who, if you haven't already, go and watch our Media Day vlog, we managed to catch up with on Media Day, and he seems very happy with the car so far. Yeah,
I mean, look, James is another good talent in the sport. It's nice to have a little bit of a split, I suppose, of some of the more stalwart icons of the sport, but also the next generation coming through. And I think Dorlin is absolutely part of that next generation. I think that, from my own personal opinion, he was slightly hard done by last year to only have half the season. Issues with sponsors, issues with cars, all kinds of bits and pieces. The life of a touring car driver isn't an easy one, despite what you may think. So, it's good to have him back on the grid in a solid team as well. That Restart have only been in this sport for, this is their 3rd season, and they've taken it by storm, really. They really have grown every year they've been in here, and they'll be aiming for a couple of outright wins this year for sure.
Yeah, definitely. They'll try and fight to keep hold of their independent drivers and teams title, although I think that will be more of a struggle this season with the independent teams that we've now had allocated for the season.
Agreed. Right, we'll move on then to LKQ with PowerMax Racing. So this is one of the new PowerMax teams. They're running the brand new Audi A3, which is a saloon, and they're an independent side, and there are 2 drivers here, and that is Aidan Moffat and Mikey Doble.
Yeah, obviously Aidan had run the LKQ Eurocar parts with, that really long one with BMW last season, with Rainford as well. Another new car for Aidan. I think he might have ticked them all off by now.
He's got to have driven the most of any driver.
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so. Pre-season looks pretty good. On Media Day, they certainly looked quick.
Yeah, they did. All 3 did as well.
They're good-looking cars as well. They've done really, really nice with delivery. And 2 drivers that, yes, okay, Double hasn't been in the sport too long, but he certainly proved his worth in that time. Moffat has been here for yonks, it feels like.
2013 for Moffat, 2023 for Doble. Both have taken wins, 5 for Moffat, 1 for Doble, which he took last year at Snetterton. Yep. Both are quite fan favourites, I think it's fair to say. I think the PMR team is quite a fan favourite as well. Obviously, last year they came back from devastating fire. which ravaged their team, the cars, and they've had to start afresh.
All credit to them as well.
Absolutely.
For going from halfway through that season to practically having nothing to the start of the 2026 season, 3 brand new cars, brand new premises that they've moved into, and looking to hit the ground running with plenty of sponsorship on all 3 cars.
It's interesting that they've managed to put 3 out and certain other teams haven't managed to fulfill all their licenses.
Yeah, that's true.
I'll leave that there but yeah, I think, as you say, it's all credit and all power to WSR that they've been able to do this, because I imagine that the morning after the fire last year, there was a lot of questions being asked about whether we carry on or whether this is the time to call it a day. But
I don't think there was any thought in Adam Weaver's mind that they would never carry on. But
not at the forefront. But I think
that's just who he is as a person and a team principal.
There is a third car running under the PowerMax livery and as an Audi A3, but it's a separate team. It's a Steel Seal, not the art kind, with PowerMax Racing, and this is being driven by one of my personal favourites, Dexter Patterson.
Yeah, there's a racer in there, hopefully.
I think this is a massive year for Dexter because he looked good at media day. He was quick at media day.
He looked a little more pleased than he did on his announcement for joining the team.
Yes, he did. Yes.
If you haven't seen already, go and find that picture because it is comedic gold.
It is absolutely that. I will say that, look, I think he's had a very difficult start to his touring car career with some of the teams he's been at. Yep. He's now at a team which has done well with nurturing talent in the past. That's pretty settled. That's not... we'll leave it there. So I think that this is a real chance for him to have a real stab at the Jack Sears, as well as looking to take outright points and maybe even his first outright podium. I think there's... Look, you can't get too carried away with media day because, like, of all testing, you don't know what teams are running. You don't know who's sandbagging. What you do know is that the field is quite close and they were running towards the top of it. They can't, you can't fake that speed. They obviously had it. I think that car looks like a touring car. It feels like a touring car, and I think it's going to be very quick.
We've got a predictions podcast coming up as well, and I found it really difficult to try and place the Audis this year, just because they're a little bit of an unknown entity. They're 3 decent drivers that can, on their day, have really quite surprisingly good results. Mm-hmm. But if that car is good and like really good, then they could be consistently up there. It's really difficult to call for them, I think. And
I think that it's really good to see another new new car, and they're not manufactured, they are they're an independent team, but it's great to have a new car on the grid, because over the last couple of years it has felt a little bit like Toyota, Ford, Hyundai, Cupra, Toyota, Ford, Hyundai, Cupra. Yes. So it is nice to have a new car to the grid. And talking of new cars to the grid, people will be screaming, thinking you've forgotten a team. They're last because they're new. No, it's not. No, gone Motorsport, unfortunately. But there's been, I don't know if you've heard, there's a certain icon of the sport. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, called Jason Plato.
I thought you were going to say Matt Neal then.
No. He's yesterday's news at the minute. Jason Plato, the 2-time touring car champion, has entered his own team this year, Cataclean Plato Racing, and they are racing under the Mercedes A35 Saloon. They are a constructor.
They are.
No surprises there, really. And they have gone for a robust lineup, shall we say?
Yes, possibly a very well experienced lineup for one, and possibly
the one up racing.
And possibly the most robust lineup that you could have had on the grid, certainly from last year's drivers. So Dan Rowbottom obviously brings Cataclean with him and is a co-team owner, which is a big step for him in the sport, I think.
Absolutely, yeah.
And also Adam Morgan, another robust, well-experienced driver. Both drivers are very much of that Plato mould, aren't they?
Absolutely, and I think that there's a couple of drivers you might have put into contention, but really you couldn't have picked 2 more Plato-style drivers for this. The car looks great. It looks low, but it looks great. The livery is awesome. And
it is very reminiscent of a Super Touring era car, just with how the tops of the wheels pitch in underneath the wings. It is squat as anything. And I just thought it was the shots for media day that they were running it like that, but it does look like it's going to be run like that for the whole season. It's just how well and how reliable and consistent they can be with that car, and how big a gains they can make across the season, because it already looks decently quick. Yeah,
and I think that there's got to be, I'm going to be the boring one here for a while.
Here we go.
No change there. I think there has to be a little bit of tapering of expectations here if you are a Plato fan.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to see them challenge for the championship in their first season. Is you got to remember, this isn't just a new car; it's a new team. There are other teams on the grid that have bought new cars this season, but they've already got the racing team. They've got everything in place. They've got the experience of the sport. And Jason has, from a driver's point of view, but he's never had this from this side of the fence. And I don't doubt that he's built a good team and he's got the right people, and he's got RML on board that, as far as I'm aware, have never made a bad racing car.
Right.
But you're up against the might of Nappa, the monsters of virtue. Like, this is a really difficult grid to slot yourself into. And I think that if you're a Plato fan and you're expecting them to come out the box and challenge the championship, you might be disappointed. I think they'll challenge for wins. I think they'll be in amongst it. But I don't think that you're going to see these drivers close to the championship at the end of the season. But they'll be looking, and actually I think he won't admit it because it's Jason Player, but I think deep down they will all know that this year is a platform, foundation, whatever you want to call it, to push on from going forward.
Especially with proposed regulation changes for 2027 onwards. If they can get their foot in the door and feel comfortable this season, then they know exactly where they can go from next season onwards.
Yeah. So I'll just quickly sum up some of those who aren't returning for the 2025 season, as you may be thinking to yourself, whereas you're not mentioned one of my favourite drivers. So the ones who were racing last year, but it's game over for this season. Jake Hill has left. He's gone to GTs. Senna Proctor is not racing, but he is the reserve driver at Nappa. We'll see.
That's a talking point all on its own.
We'll see if he gets any race time, but we'll see. Ronan Pearson has left the series and gone to GT and is now an Aston Martin Academy driver, which is great for him. Michael Crease couldn't get a deal together. He's left the grid. Stephen Jelly couldn't get a deal together at time of recording. There is still technically a WSR TBL, although I'd be stunned based on media day whether we see that field.
Yeah, and it doesn't even look like Jelly's got himself onto the Porsche grid yet for 2026, but it wouldn't surprise me if he pops up, certainly for a few races there.
Nick Halstead has retired. Max Hall has gone back to TCR, and Dan Lloyd has taken a sabbatical for this season. So those are the drivers that aren't coming back for this year.
Yeah, we'll get into some rules, regulations, how championships work, and we'll start normally towards the lower end of the grid with Jack Sears. So the Jack Sears is for any driver who has not won a Jack Sears trophy previously, or scored more than one outright podium. So drivers that have taken wins and podiums not included. There is just a short list of drivers this year.
Yep, there's just 5. So we've got Dexter Patterson in the PMR Audi. We've got James Dorlin in the Restart Racing Hyundai. We've got Max Buxton in the Toyota Corolla. We've got Lewis Selby in the Nappa Ford Focus, and we've got Nicholas Hamilton in the Virtue Hyundai. So only a small grid. It could be very close because the way the points are scored is that if you finish 16th on the road, you wouldn't get any outright championship points. However, if you were the first out of those 5 to finish on the road, so say you were 16th and everyone else was 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th, you would get the full race win points for the Jack Sears Trophy. So finishing races is key, particularly this year, because the worst you can score is 5th position.
Yeah. Any non-finishes you don't get any points for, unfortunately, which can make a big impact and a big hit in your championship challenge for the Jack Sears. The drivers that are in there are typically drivers that are certainly newer to the grid or have been less successful. And it makes it really competitive because normally they're drivers down the bottom end of the grid and they'll be fighting between each other throughout the season, throughout races.
And the way I said about the scoring there, that's how it works for the independent drivers, the independent teams, and the constructors and the teams as well. So it's all about where you finish. So the independent drivers, there's a few more. We have Patterson, we have Doble, we have Moffat, we have Aaron Taylor-Smith, we have Gordon Shedden, we have Chris Smiling, we have James Dorlin, and we have Charles Rainford and Darryl de Leon.
It's going to be a really competitive independent championship this season.
Agreed.
And if for whatever reason we see another runaway winner in the main championship, we can guarantee that one of the other championships is certainly going to throw up a fight and throw up a possible final day decider.
You may also be sat there thinking, well, hang on a minute, how can the constructors be fair when there's some teams with 4 and some teams with 2? Well, at the start of each weekend, the team must nominate their 2 constructor scorers. So they can pick whoever they want from that 4.
It is a lot clearer this year, though.
Yeah,
with the drivers that are in each team.
Yeah, I think being realistic, the 2 at Virtue are going to be the 2 Toms, and the 2 at Nappa are going to be Ash and Dan. I think that's fairly obvious. But they are nominated at the start of each weekend. So if Dan Camish had to miss a weekend for whatever reason, or the car broke on the way in, or whatever, before the weekend started, they couldn't get the car on the truck, whatever reason, they would then be able to nominate Sam Osborne, for argument's sake, as the other driver.
Now, other big changes that we've seen going into this season are to do with qualifying and the weekend format as a whole. Now, we're keeping with the 3-race format on the Sunday, where you will see the quickest driver start race 1 from the front, generally.
Well, not
depending
anymore.
on the race.
Not anymore.
Race 2, we will see a tyre difference allocation for the top 3 drivers, and then race 3 we will see a reverse grid draw as well. But where the changes are on the Saturday.
Yeah, just as you mentioned, the races. Race 1 is set by the grid we're going to talk about in a minute. Yep. Race 2 is the same grid in the order you finished in race 1, and then race 3 is partially reversed through a lottery system between places 6 to 12.
Lottery.
It is now. They've sealed the balls.
Yes. But yeah, this season we're going down to just 1 practice session on the Saturday. We used to have 2 35-minute sessions. It is now just going to be reduced down to 1 40-minute session, which is going to make it much more critical for teams and drivers to get that setup nailed.
Yeah.
To then go into the qualifying and the qualifying race.
Yeah, because once the qualifying has started, you're in what's known as parc fermé conditions, which means you cannot make any setup changes to the car unless it rains, is my understanding. You can make changes if it's a wet race is declared.
Yeah.
But it does mean that if you were to make changes, you would effectively be disqualified from that session, have to start. I don't think we start from the pit lane in this sport. We do in F1. I think you'll be put to the back of the grid, is my understanding. Yeah.
So there will be qualifying on Saturday. That qualifying will set the race or set the grid for the qualifying race also on Saturday.
Yeah, also known as, you might hear it referred to as the sprint race throughout the season.
Yeah, so for qualifying, the grid will be split into 2 from the practice session. So you'll have the odds and the evens go out and set qualifying times to find the fastest lap. Yeah,
there are 15 minutes to do so. So around some circuits, that may be as little as 3 laps. From other circuits, you could well get 10, 20 laps in there. It's a little bit of a lottery to how the track is. I don't like that rule. I think they should change it to fit the circuit, because Snetterton, that time will go very quickly at Snetterton. It will last a lifetime at Brands Indy.
And there can also be huge differences in changes of weather between the first and the second session. So it puts a little more emphasis on practice as well.
Yep. Then to set the grid with the overall quickest driver will line up on the odd side of the grid, whilst the other will take the even side. So even if you go quickest in your second session, if you're not quicker than the guy who set the first session, you will still end up on the odd side of the grid, and vice versa. So you could well be sitting 4th on the grid, even though your time was quicker than the guy in 3rd.
Yep.
But that doesn't matter, because it's done on a system that makes perfect sense.
Oh dear. Right, then into the sprint race, which will then set the grid for the first race on Sunday.
You with us so far?
Yeah, it's tricky. The sprint race will last around 15 minutes, lap dependent, normally on the circuit.
Which again is pointless. Sorry, I'm trying not to be down about this, but again, I'll come back to Snetterton. That's about 6 laps of Snetterton.
I know.
And at Brands Hatch is about maybe 16, 17.
Yeah. The final standings from that race, as I've said, will set the grid on Sunday for race 1. There are also points awarded in the sprint race on the Saturday.
To the top 15 drivers.
To the top 15 drivers in a slightly arbitrary way.
Look, you might be able to tell from facial expressions, the fact my head is in my hands and my overall tone, that I hate everything about this.
What I'm going to say is we have already done a podcast on this season.
Yeah, we have, yeah.
I will link it down in the description below. If you haven't gone and watched it or listened to it yet, please go and do that, because we've spent a little bit longer there explaining how it all happens, how it all goes on, and whether it is a good or bad thing for this season.
Well, you might have got our feelings on that based on my general dismay at the moment. But look, we've got to give it a chance to see how it works. Yeah. I think my biggest problem, and we discussed this with a couple of fans at Media Day, is that the drivers didn't necessarily agree at this point, I was about to make, is that I felt that last year they got themselves in such a good sweet spot of how qualifying was working, and they've now gone, and decided that we need to just bring in this. And look, I understand wanting to get fans at the circuit on the Saturday. A chance to hike your prices up for the Saturday, isn't it, as well? I'd understand. I'd be less cross if they kept the Saturday price as it was last year and said, well, right, for the first year while we're trialing it, we want fans on the Saturday, we'll freeze the price for it. But no, as you'd expect, because it's now more value. The price has gone up, which means weekend tickets have gone up, which means that once again, whilst we're being told this is all for us, we're the ones paying for it. Anyway, I'll move on. Should we look at the calendar?
Dear.
Look at the calendar of the 2026 season. It's because if you're a long-standing fan, you'll be aware of the circuits. Of course, there's not many in the UK that we can visit due to size and the ability to have spectators in the numbers that come out to a touring car event. But the order has changed rather a lot. So we still open at Donington Park on the 18th and 19th of April.
Yes, which we will be at.
We will indeed.
If you see us there, do come and say hello. We don't bite.
We have stickers too.
Yes, exactly. That will be followed up by Brands Hatch Indy, which is where we had Media Day just last week. Just this week, sorry.
Yeah.
On the 9th and 10th of May.
Again, we are going, so again, same applies.
Yes.
We then move to Norfolk and Snetterton, which is early this year, I believe, is it?
A little
bit early.
It's normally around my birthday.
Oh, that's true, actually. That is true, which is the 23rd and 24th of May.
Which we will be going to.
We will indeed.
Follow that up with a trip up to Cheshire and Alton Park on the 6th and 7th of June.
Yep.
Before
The summer break.
Early summer break.
An early summer break. Only 4 meetings into the season. We then have a slightly changed around Thruxton, which I think normally comes earlier, doesn't it?
Earlier, yep.
I tell you what, Thruxton on the 25th and 26th of July, in that heat with those tyres.
Oh, it's going to be warm.
Well, no, it's British summer, so it'll be wet, but we are going.
We are.
But I'm also thinking that is a circuit that is lethal on tyres.
It is.
And it could be hot.
It could. We already saw a couple of punches for the Speedworks Corollas during Media Day, so let's hope they've got those possible issues sorted out by then.
We then move to an early Knock Hill. It's a bit of a shame because that potentially means no rain.
Yeah, potentially, but British summer. On the 8th and 9th of August.
We then come back down into the Midlands for Donington Park GP Loop, which has got the extra little hairpin on the 22nd and 23rd of August, which I think is bank holiday weekend.
It is a little bit earlier in the season because Croft has moved all the way back to the 5th and 6th of September.
So Croft is usually the height of the summer race, and I've been to Croft in the height of the summer and it was hot. Yes. I've been to Croft in the height of summer twice and it was hot on both occasions. Not going to Croft this year, but that is interesting how late in the calendar that is. That could be very interesting, particularly if it rains, because Croft in the wet has had some legendary crashes in the past.
It has. Followed up by the Silverstone, 26th and 27th of September, Russ's favourite circuit.
We'll cover that off in the preview. Let's not give too much away early.
And then the season finale, once again, will be at Brands Hatch GP circuit. So that's the long route with the circuit that goes out through the trees, basically. And that will be on the 10th and 11th of October.
Absolutely. I think that's the calendars. I will quickly run through the flags because some people are new. And to be fair, half the time I don't think the drivers know what the flags are. So I will now... I think we've seen enough. I think we've seen enough evidence of that over the last couple of years, in not just in touring cars, in all sports, in all forms of motorsport that we watch, where flags aren't taking much notice of. But I'll tell you what they are anyway, just in case you're interested. So there are 2 types of yellow flags you might see on the circuit. Now, if you're a traditionalist, it used to be marshals waving them. However, at most circuits we visit now, particularly with MSV, you will have light boards, and at some circuits the marshals still wave as well as the light boards. At some it's just the light boards. The drivers also have on their dash a little section which will light up depending on what flag
nice and bright,
depending on what flag is out. So then when Nick Halstead's still in the way of somebody trying to lap him at Knock Hill, it beggars belief. But anyway, we'll scoot over that. A single yellow flag means there is a danger on track and you need to be slowing down and not overtaking. It is an offence to overtake under a yellow flag, and the stewards will not look upon that kindly afterwards.
No, a double yellow flag is when there are personnel on track, possibly recovering a vehicle, and you need to be prepared to stop at that point.
Yes.
So you need to slow down significantly more than just a single yellow.
Often if a barrier is damaged or there's a big recovery job needed or there's any sort of form of real concern to safety of the driver or staff or anybody like that, a red flag may be shown. A race is stopped, you must slow down, be prepared to stop. Normally they will come into the pit lane, the instruction will be to come into the pits. However, depending where the accident is, they may well stop on the circuit and have to wait until the track is clear and safe for them to proceed.
Yeah, there's also the green flag, which normally follows a zone of a yellow flag. This is to signify that you can go back to racing conditions. You'll see a green flag lap as well at the start of the race, which is our formation lap in Btcc.
Absolutely. If you see a blue one flashing away, it means that there's a faster vehicle approaching, and that is most often used for a car that is about to be lapped.
Yep. The classic checkered flag, that will be race finish. And yeah, the winner has crossed the line. The rest of the drivers will follow, and the last car will be taken note of. So they will get back into the pits at the right time.
You may also see a black and orange flag, which is a black flag with an orange circle, referred to as the meatball flag. No, it's not Tim Harvey thinking about lunch. It is, in fact, it's really the kiss of death for a racing car driver. It means that the stewards have decided that the car is running with a technical fault or too serious a damage to be running safely, and they must come to the pit lane to have that dealt with. Now, often that's generally flapping bodywork, although there is no hard and fast rule. What's flapping bodywork to you might not be flapping bodywork to me or Sam or the stewards. So don't expect that to be at all consistent throughout the season. But also remember, it is down to the discretion of the race stewards at the time. Generally, as I say, if a bit of bodywork is flapping and it's deemed that it could fly off at any moment, which could then hit the spectators or cause an accident or cause debris on the circuit, they will be instructed to come into the pit lane. There are 3 laps to do so. If they do not come in, then they are disqualified. However, that does give them time to potentially find a tyre barrier and try and knock it off themselves, which
we have seen before.
We have seen.
Looking at you, Gordon Shedden. The black and white flag, this is a cross diagonal, black one corner, white the other, i.e. is a signal of driving standard issues, whether that be track limits.
Most often is track limits.
Most often track limits, whether it be forcing another driver off the track or something like that. It's to signify that you are on a warning, basically. Any more naughty behaviour, and then you will be getting a black flag.
Absolutely. So yeah, it's basically, have you gained an advantage that's obvious to the stewards without further investigation? So you track limits, or you say forcing somebody off the track, etc. The black flag means the driver is disqualified and cannot continue for the rest of the session. It has happened. We have seen the black flag in the past. I can't remember the last time off the top of my head, but we have seen it. We then have the red and yellow flag.
Yes, a slippery surface on track. This could be down to a number of things.
A numerous number.
So we've got debris on track, possibly. We've got mud, gravel, whatever has been dragged on. We've got fluids on track, whether that be oil, coolant, fuel, even rain.
I was going to say, a sudden sharp rain shower, which was not expected and is only affecting part of the circuit. You may well see the slippery flag come out as a warning.
It basically gives drivers that knowledge going into the section of the track that they're approaching, that there could be something on the track that would give them less grip than they would normally have.
What they do with that information is entirely up to them. However, you may on occasion see that doubled up with a yellow flag as well, depending on the situation. Then we have the final flag, which is a white flag, which means there's a slow vehicle moving on track. This is often a service vehicle, such as a JCB, what's the crane thing called? Snatcher? Is it Snatcher?
Snatch vehicle.
Or
even a slow race car. If it's trying to recover back to the pits with a puncture or a mechanical issue and they're going slowly, generally you will see a white flag put out rather than a blue one, to show that there is a slow vehicle ahead.
Right, I think that conducts most things. Is there anything else you want to touch on before we say thank you for listening and looking forward to the season?
Let us know your thoughts on the driver lineups that we now have confirmed for the 2026 season, how you think things are going to pan out for the season, whether you have a pre-season favourite or someone that you think is going to flop. We're going to get into a predictions podcast as well, so go and watch that next if you haven't done so already.
I'm going to ask you one more question. I'm going to put you on the spot. If you were to pick a driver to watch this season, and it can't be Ingram or Sutton because take that as read, who would be we did this last year and we both picked Rainford, which went very well. Who would be your driver to watch going into the 2026 season?
Now, we haven't had many new drivers come to the championship this year, so I think it's going to have to be a driver that is currently or is used to being on the touring car grid. And I think you're probably going to have to, and this is going to be really controversial.
Feels like you're playing for time here. What do you think?
It's going to be really controversial. You're going to go, what? Moffat in the Audi.
Okay. I mean, you do lead the anti-Moffat fan club, which it doesn't surprise me entirely.
If that car is as fast as it seems, and the experience that he brings with him, obviously running various different vehicles throughout the BTCC in his career, it could be a really good combination, and the combination that he's actually been searching for the last, what feels like 15 years.
Get that dig in.
But yeah, I think he could be the driver to watch, looking at the speed that we've had from them in pre-season. What about you?
I'm going Ricky Collard. I think he's a driver that is exciting. I think he's a driver that gets bums on seats or off seats, depending which way you want to look at it. I don't think he's going to challenge for the championship, but I do think that if you're looking for a driver that's going to bring you a little bit of joy and a little bit of the old school, I think he's got to be it for me. He's exciting, and I think that I think the sport is stronger for him in it. I think he may rub a few shoulders the wrong way. I think there may be a few incidents in the stewards room afterwards. But also, I hope for him that he can get that first British touring car win and sort of. It'd be quite cool to have another generation of Collards in the sport with a win. Obviously, they've won the father-son team dynamic by winning the GT. I think it's just quite a cool story to have Ricky back in the series. And look, this isn't just some guy that went racing because his dad liked it and is a bit of a poodler and there for he's a proper driver. He's a proper driver. And yeah, I'm interested to see what he can do, particularly at that team as well. Particularly as I think it's fair to say most fans, and I think both of us would agree, that on paper, Virtue's had a little bit of a downgrade from where they were last year. So he'll be looking to prove everybody wrong and say that he can take that that mantle and scoring points.
That's fair enough. Well, throughout this season, we will keep you up to date with previews and reviews of all the race weekends, even the ones that we go to when we have to get home in God knows what hour and then rewatch all the races.
Yeah, the Donington review is going to be interesting because some idiot booked a holiday straight after that. But we'll do that. We'll find a way.
And we'll keep you up to date with all the news that goes on throughout the season. We'll probably bring you a monthly news update podcast as well.
Absolutely. So if you are new to the channel or the podcast, just to give you an idea how we work, we give you a preview, which normally drops on the Thursday or Friday before the race weekend, depending on when this one can get edited amongst badminton and dart commitments, because where does this sit in? Is this a priorities? And then we bring you a review as soon as we can after the weekend's action. If we've been to the event, it tends to be a day or two later than if we haven't.
Yep.
And then, as you say, anything in between we catch up on throughout the season. We also have a 10 minutes with series, which if there's a particular issue to discuss, we'll dedicate 10 minutes ish to discuss it. And also in the summer break, we've got loads of content lined up from the summer break. Some of the stuff we've had shelved or sort of in our minds for years now. And my only worry about that is that one of the biggest scripts I've ever written is on a laptop that died this morning, so we'll have to see if I can find a way to get that back, because being old, I didn't use the cloud, but we'll worry about that nearer the time. So yeah, that's what you can expect from us throughout the season. You can listen, you can watch, you can interact with us on social media, Instagram, Facebook's the best for chatting, Instagram's the best if you want to drop us a DM. We have got an email address as well, which we don't check as often as we should because we get lots of spam.
Yes.
I think that pretty much sums up where we are.
I think so too. But until the next pod, we'll see you again soon, and enjoy 2026.
Bye for now.